Today, we're going to be talking about field marketing reporting. So where you have lots and lots of different venues and you're going to collect information normally from stores. So we're looking at this operational kind of orange area of the product right now. And if I just go to the next slide, we're specifically looking at the orange areas in the business operations side of things here. So the creation of reports, we've done booking people on, but we're also going to be looking at the approval of those reports. So for those of you that are just looking at this for interest and you're not reporting and collecting data for clients now, obviously if you go out and you do something for clients, they will pay you an hourly rate. If you do something for clients and you collect a lot of data that they value, management data that they value, then you can clearly that's a revenue opportunity for people who are not even who aren't actually in field marketing. And I think we looked at lots of use cases for Questionnaire Builder and how it could increase revenue for you. The next stage is obviously once those reports come in, you'll want to be able to check that they're okay before presenting them on a client portal so that the client can get pictures of their point of sale beforehand, their point of sale afterwards. For those of you who are not from this marketplace, the basic idea is that if you run retail in thousands of stores, or your products are in 20 or 30 toy stores or 300 Tesco's or whatever, you want to make sure that your products are better arranged and more visible than anybody else's. Likewise, some of the people who are on the call at the moment have been doing a rebranding for a restaurant chain, and there are pictures before, pictures afterwards, so that the client can see their nice new branding on there. So that involves the collection of data. Now, previously, we've looked at how to create shifts, create people's pay rates, and what we're going to be looking now is, assuming these people are booked on the shelf on these things, we're going to be looking at how we're going to add the data collection part to that. And then later, tomorrow and next week, we're going to be looking at approving shifts, both the shifts that where somebody's turned up to do a cleaning task or a security task, but also the shifts where somebody's collected data based on the objectives. So for a cleaner, it's just, did they start at 5? Did they end at, I don't know, not 8 a.m. In the morning? If it's field marketing, obviously you're approving them on the basis that they have collected the data for you, and you don't actually care when they turned up, so long as they definitely went to that store and they definitely showed you the before and after photos, collected the data, and so on. So what we're going to be talking about today is, first of all, getting the stores onto your system. There's always an interesting bun fight between the customers who want to give you a set of stores that they want you to go round, which is fine. You can import them into our system, and hundreds of them. But there's also an opportunity to say to clients, actually, the list you've just given me, we've got an up-to-date list. We've done 5 campaigns on those stores already, and you're giving me this PC World in Reading, which doesn't even exist anymore. It's now a something. So there's a lot of opportunity to add value for clients in that way. So we'll be looking at that. We'll be then looking at how you create a shift or a report or a visit for each one of those stores. And this goes, I would say, as well for, we have customers that use the Questionnaire Builder for health and safety and all kinds of inspections on top of the work that they're doing. And obviously, most of the work that we do with this is where people are going into retailers and looking at the stock of food or whether an end of aisle display. And the example that I'm going to use today is going into a store for Chopper Chips, an imaginary brand that you're representing, and seeing if their end of aisle displays are up near the freezer aisles. For those of you who don't know, they're those things in supermarkets where or other shops where at the end of an aisle or intersection there's a display and it encourages you to buy this 2-for-1 wine or these chips or whatever it is. We are then going to look at creating the reports, questionnaires. Now, we've done that quite a lot in previous, so I've got one which I created earlier. And then we're going to look at how you can add the questionnaires to an overall contract. So the same questionnaire, regardless of which site somebody goes to, regardless of which shop all the staff go to, they want to ask the same 7 or 8 questions. If we've got time, I'd quite like to look at the interesting issue of what happens if the questionnaires, if the client says after 3 days, we're not getting much out of question 4, can you substitute questions 6, 8, and 9 in these sections because we want to change the questionnaire. And our system allows you to do that. You can make question 4 disappear, and you can make questions 5, 6, and 7 appear, so that you can start to dynamically change the questionnaires. The various questionnaires you would add are: 1 to the whole contract, then to a specific visit, so we can have these session questionnaires. So some visits get 1 questionnaire, so it could be that Tesco Metros get 1 questionnaire, but Tesco's with a large cafe that are Tesco Extras get another questionnaire. And then also there's a thing called dynamic questionnaires, and they're the questionnaires where you stand on the street corner and as many people pass you, you can ask them what they think of a particular program, or whether they watched a particular advert and they have brand recognition for something. So I'm going to leave that agenda up as I just pop through things. I'm going to just grab my Chrome system, which is here, and upon which I have the standard new demo dashboard. And presently you can see I've just got a model shift on here. And if I go and have a look at that, it looks like there's one person, this imaginary Henrik Barbarossa guy, the roles are on there. It looks like he's got a role, he's a merchandiser, he's all set up to be paid. And we can obviously first of all look at site replication, so that we've got a role just like that for every one of, let's say, 300 Debenhams stores, I think, or John Lewis's I might have on here. We've imported some stores just to save time, and we're going to start with how you import stores and how you replicate all of those. So we've got one guy, it's all set up. The only other thing I was going to look at was there's no qualifications on there, so we've kept it really simple. If we go to the actual main event, you will see in the parent event that you can add 1 questionnaire, and somebody's added test questionnaire to this. I have created a new questionnaire, which I might add later, but I think we've got test questionnaire, and it doesn't really matter which one we've got. But that's how you would add a questionnaire to the whole of the system. So if I just go back to test questionnaire there, oops, test questionnaire, it's there somewhere, that one. Now, what you can also do is you can, in this system, you can manage questionnaires for different shifts, and I'll be taking a look at that later. Obviously, there's only 1 session on there at the moment, but you can, with different quick shifts, if you don't have one for the whole contract, you can add different questionnaires to different shifts. It's a little academic at the moment because we've only got 1 shift. To do shifts replication, you have to go into the session replication, and of course, please ensure that the sessions are fully configured. So that means make sure you've got your payroll and everything on there. And if you go OK, then there's various different replications you could do. Now, presently, we've only got 1 on there, and we haven't got any sites. So what we need to do is we need to go and find on here the actual sites that we want to do session replication on. So if you bear with me just a moment, I'll go and show you how to do those. Now, previously in import admin, and again, importing is not a dark art. I would say it's fundamentally very, very simple, but it does, as you know, take a lot of care. And I've got one here, which was, I believe, a bunch of stores. And if I just show you the spreadsheet, which I've got ready here, it'll become obvious what we're coming in. There we go. Whoops, just trying to pick the banner up without. There we go. So on this spreadsheet, we've got a name of a store. You will almost certainly probably not have org source. You don't actually care where that came from, unless it comes from a particular client and you want to be able to search for it afterwards on this flag and to be able to delete it. You know, the client might say, I want you to delete this list of stores afterwards. And you might want to get rid of them as well, because clients give you sometimes some fairly dirty data. On the other hand, there's always a revenue opportunity, because if you turn up at such and such a restaurant or a store and it doesn't exist, or it doesn't have a cafe or something, you can add value by explaining the corrections to the customer. So then you've got a type of organization, and the organization name and the type will be the same. Don't forget, you must always, when you're importing, differentiate between John Lewis headquarters or Debenhams headquarters or Boots headquarters, where you may have contacts to do work for them, and the actual stores. It's very important not to go and add them onto the same thing. One is a place that you invoice, the other is a place that you're going to use to set up demos. You've then got all of the address information, and the reason that you need that, and maybe also a contact number for the manager or whatever, if they give it to you. Normally they don't. The reason that you need all that is that you want that to be able to, first of all, appear on the staff screens on their app so that they press a button and they can find it really easily with a map. But more importantly, if they check in to prove that they were there at a certain time, especially if it's a demo shift rather than just a field marketing data collection shift, then you'll want to be able to know if they were 300 yards away from the store, or as we've occasionally found, people checking in a mile away from the store. And of course, you may or may not use geofencing. Some of our customers now, with retail stores, they want to be able to check that people were within 300 yards of the store before they logged in. What I would also add to this, if it was a real import, is I would add a project code. And the reason I do that is because I can then look at, search immediately on that project. And I would also add, now there aren't any for John Lewis or Debenhams, I don't think, unless there are some, but we don't know about them. But for example, Dixon's always, showing my age here, Dixon's always used to have a 4-digit code for every single digit store, and people used to there's a big chain of restaurant, and they have a unique ID for each restaurant. Their client doesn't own the restaurants, but they have their internal database unique ID for them, and they need to be able to split it down by those numbers, and they need to be able to refer to those numbers so they can link it into their own system. So you would probably add that data in. Once you've done that, you can see here these columns names automatically jump into this column here. You say, I want to match an org name. In other words, I don't want it to create loads of John Lewis organizations, just one. And then it would go through, or you would go through, and you would match all of those John Lewis organizations to the various fields that they go into. You'd prepare and validate the data, and you would import. So now that that data is available, if I was to say I am looking for Debenhams, and I'll probably look for Debenhams stores. Here we go, Debenhams. And I've got all the Debenhams here. Let's make sure I've got Debenhams stores and not Debenhams HQ. Yeah. And let's say John Lewis. Again, I want the stores. I don't want the HQ. So I've said John Lewis stores there. There's John Lewis stores. Fantastic. So I've now got 172 records, and I can use those for site replication. So if I go back to my list here, I can now look for site replication, date site replication, and it already knows that these stores on this list here are the ones that I want to look at. Now I've gone and looked for, I've got a search here and said, show me all the Debenhams, show me all the John Lewis stores. But obviously you would be a lot smarter. You'd have a project code and you just say, show me all the Panasonic 2021-8 summer something stores, and they would all come back, the ones that you have agreed with the customer that you want to use. And that way you can have one list, true list of sites, and keep it separate from the projects from the customers, and they're owned by you rather than the customer. So I now click here. Oops, no I don't. Click here, finalize payroll, site replication. Okay, and I'll just let that run on while I demonstrate something else. So basically you check all the sites and you just say, yeah, I want to copy the staff booking data, who's on there and so on. Now I need to actually take that that staff booking stuff off and the staff lists, and the obvious reason for that is here we are, click here to do the site replication. I don't want Henrik Barbosa on the same day turning up for 172 stores. I'm going to later book the people on the stores, or let it loose on the app for people to say, I'll do those 15 stores please, or whatever. So we've now got 172 stores, and we've got a couple of challenges. One is, how do we allocate the questionnaires to the stores? And the other challenge is, of course, making sure people have turned up and they've done the questionnaires properly. And as I say, you don't have to be in field marketing to see for this to spark off ideas about how it could generate revenue for your business. So in true Blue Peter fashion, while that's gluing, I will go off and have a look at some questionnaires. Now, we're not going to deploy this questionnaire to this store, but if I just go to get QB, we can have a look at the questionnaire that we're going to actually create, and then we can have a look at how to add them to a contract or a specific visit. So back in here, if we go to questionnaires, I have hopefully saved it because I've gone and refreshed the form. So rather than create a complete new one, I've created a questionnaire for Field Marketing Day 10. And what I've done is I've got two sections that people will see on their app. The first one has questions like, does this store even have a Chopper Chips? Remember, this is an imaginary brand, Chopper Chips. Does it have an end of aisle display? And if I open up some of these questions, for those of you that are not aware of how field marketing works, you can map this probably onto your own business. And you can see how this would be good for health and safety baseline checks and things at stores, or security checks or whatever. This could as easily be, are there locks on the windows, or is the cleaning kit there, or what's the square footage of the floor, or whatever. So so the first question is the end of aisle display up there? You know, somebody was supposed to be putting it up there. You're going along to check it, really. So if it's yes, then you carry on with the next one and you take a photo, and you can see that the example here is take a photo. Now the next thing is, if it's no, if there isn't an end of aisle display, then you flip down here to question 4, and then it says, are you able to add one? And you could obviously add loads and loads of other questions and branches on there. So the branching is very important. Remember, in the branching, you can jump questions, or you can make questions, you can set them to required and so on. And the reason I use this example is, I remember my son's first job was with a toy company, and on his first day in the office, they put him on the phones, and he just took 20 or 30 calls from Tesco supermarket managers, who, if you're familiar with the market, are very, very serious senior people, often running a 20 or 30 million pound business, a Tesco shop. And hundreds of staff reporting to them, and they were complaining that they'd set up a table and nobody turned up to do the demos. So the field marketing company in that case got in very, very deep doo-doo. So does it have the end of aisle display up there? I think they got somewhere in the region of £180,000 of the compensation, because this field marketing company also did not put the requisite number of point of sale things up there, the end of aisle displays. It really stuck with me, that example. So then later on, we get to question 3, which is it full of stock for people to take from? You'll be familiar with these things if you're not in retail. Any store you go to, there'll be wine in there and crisps and that kind of stuff. And we're apparently programmed as human beings to take those things. The hunter-gatherer comes out in us. If there wasn't a display, did you take one? So you can imagine somebody answering these questions. If I look at the preview and imagine that this is if I just do this and imagine that this is on the cell phone, you can imagine somebody just whipping through these things, yes, no, clicking on there, bringing up their camera, and so on and so forth. I've also put some stuff down for stock, and I wanted to introduce this feature to you. You'll see here that I've got one question, but it's a table. So I've got the starting stock, the ending stock, and by implication, you can get sales. I thought I added sales, but I kind of pressed go on that. And we're looking at both the family pack and the kiddie lunchbox. I also put in a office lunchbox, and I probably didn't hit save afterwards. So if I go back to the actual questionnaire builder, I can show you how all that works. So in the sales one, I have picked numbers as what I want the people to stick in. And I have, in addition, I have put in here that my row headers are starting stock and ending stock. And I'm now going to put in sales. Oops. Sales quantity. And I save that. And then down here, I just need to add the office pack. I think I've put lowercase in the other ones. Let's not go American here. So if I save that now, then you can see I will have added to that table. Where where my save button's gone, save. Then you can see when I preview it, when I go to section 2, you can see here they clearly have to put 9 bits of data in, and they would probably put in something like, I don't know, 10, 10, whatever it is, 10, 20, 20, yeah, hopefully 0, 0, 0, and so on and so forth. And they didn't put in the number of sales that they've made during the day. So that's how to create a field marketing. If we now go back to our event over here and look at the dashboard, if I reset this baby here, review it, refresh it, then you can see I have got a whole bunch of unbooked, hence this 0, a whole bunch of unbooked stores, 172 to be precise, stores that are on there, and each one of those will have a label so that people can see where they're supposed to be going, and that will show up on their app. And then if we click on one at random, I have no idea where the Grafton Centre is. I should, but it turns out that it is where it is. Grafton Centre. There it is. By the way, when you create your sessions, don't forget to put your promo logo up there, because that shows on the app. It shows on anything your staff print out. And if your client is mystery shopping you, it's really good for their product to be all over the stuff while you're doing their campaign. So you can see here that we've got the venue. We find exactly where it is. If it's wrong, we can choose a different venue. And most importantly, just to be clear, because I'm not sure if we're going to do a little bit of geo tracking, but if I just bring up that one of these venues in here, if I just pick one at random, so this one is the Glades Bromley, I can look at the map and I can see exactly where the actual, if I just maximize this, I can see exactly where the person is supposed to turn up for Kiko purposes. So I can go to satellite. We were doing this with the big hotels where some clients of ours have a contract at Heathrow, and we were looking for where we should put the pin. Now, in this particular case, Google has put the pin there, but if you found people on a, let's say, 250 geofencing were unable to log in, but they were all arriving, let's say, at the front door. I don't know where the front door of this is. This looks like a main street. But if they were, let's say, all arriving there, then actually that's not even a Debenhams. It says it's a solicitor's company. I imagine there's a Debenhams somewhere around there. This is actually a classic example of where we probably ought to move it around. Now, a couple of things can happen when people get lost and they can't prove their presence. One is you can move it nearer the door and that's fine. I think in this case, we've got completely the wrong building. It may be that we've mixed up demo data so it doesn't look like Debenhams stores, but you can see how easy it is to correct that. Worst comes to worst, we have situations where the pin, moving the pin around to where they are, doesn't seem to help. Google has somehow got it wrong. So we can show the lat long, and you can get a manager or them to stand outside and say, right, what does the lat long say on your map? WhatsApp it over to us, and you can cut it out, paste it in there, and then that should be the exact position they're standing. And we did this quite a lot. If there's anybody from Brand Embassy listening, in the airports where you do counter cover for Heinemann, we did it a lot in Vienna Airport, because where you've got an airport or a large multi-story store, whether it's a cleaning contract or a demo contract or anything, you do get problems where Google can see through those floors, but it's not terribly accurate. Stuff bounces around or whatever. I don't know if anybody's on the call, but Spitalfields is one of our favorite case studies at the moment. It's a huge area, and we're trying to find a place where people can log in. But that's one in 10,000 sites. Mostly Google is very accurate. By the way, just as a heads up, if you have thousands of sites and you import thousands of staff, like some of you do, Google is starting to charge over a certain amount. So the first thing we've done is we've started to split, because I think the amount's 1,000. So the first thing we've done is we started to split into several accounts. And because everybody has an account with Google now on our system, whereas it all used to be on our account, not very many people are paying, but if you get to thousands and thousands, then there will be a few pence from Google that's going to come out. It could be, I don't know, 50 quid a month or something like that. Unfortunately, it's a bit like texting. They have pulled us onto the punch. We absolutely love using their map, all of us, and so I know that's going to be another little cost that's going to add to all the costs that we have. So if I just zip back to the agenda now, we've seen how site replication works. In the previous one, we had a look at the whole area of booking people onto jobs. And those of you that book very large numbers of people onto jobs, you'll be aware of the benefits and downfalls of allowing staff to book onto their own jobs or applying for jobs. And the whole booking area, we tend to tune on a customer by customer basis. We've had a look at site replication, site IDs, very, very good idea, and of course the project code. We've looked at creating questionnaires. I think we've done that to death in the last couple of days. Adding the questionnaire to a contract. So if I go to, let's say, this contract here, if I go back to the dashboard, and I go to this contract here, let's say this one, I don't think I have added a questionnaire to this, but we can quite easily do that. So there's the actual contract, and in the parent event here, I can choose a particular one. Whoops, that's the color, cancel. I can go and choose, where's the day 10? And I can choose that day 10 thing. Now, it's a shame I've made day 10 to be for Chopper Chips. But once Chopper Chips has chosen for a contract, it can't be changed, but you can change the questionnaire details. And then what I can also do is in the actual individual sessions, if there wasn't a main one, then if I don't choose that and don't save that, I can also in the individual sessions add specific session questionnaires using session management. So that's how you add a questionnaire to a contract. So now everybody that picks up this particular contract picks it up, and does 10 stores in Leeds or 58 stores in their area, can log into the app, find out where they are, do their check-in, check-out. They can answer the questionnaire, which will come up on their app when they get to the site, and they can fill in all the data for you, upload it, and then I'll just finish off with approvals. So normally for an approval, you would have completed and incompleted questionnaires, and normally we would have a look at your business rules in order to be able to approve questionnaires, and we slot in a different slot here. These will be very familiar to you, this interface, and the reason for that is they're all built with Report Builder. So if you look at these banners underneath these tabs here called Staff Completed, if you look at these banners, you can see that they're basically reports. You've got your filters, you've got a search, you can refresh it, and so on and so forth. You can export it to a CSV. And the idea of all of these is that you can change the report. You can add and change columns. But the most important thing is for that contract, you can see exactly where you are. You can export a CSV for the customer, and depending on what country you're in, you can export things like comma decimal points, and dots mean commas, or for Europe, or you can do different date things and so on and so forth. If you're allowed to export CSVs, obviously that's a permission on the system. So to approve them, you would have an approval tab here, and you would go through them, and you would either approve a lot of them, or you would approve one at a time, or you'd go and look at the actual report to make sure that that was ready to be approved, so that the customer can see that on the client portal. So on the client portal, the customer would be able to log in, and they would be able to see their sessions and see nice graphs and lots of pictures of before and after, to see what their systems, what the stores where their products are, what those stores look like, what their product displays in those stores look like, or the new branding maybe you've put in there, or they could see the stock before and afterwards, and so on. So that's it for the building the actual questionnaires. For adding in the the sites that you want to go to, and that works for thousands and thousands of sites or just one or two. It also works for adding the questionnaire to the contract and to individual sites if you want to. And the final thing is obviously once you've finished all of that, the information about who has completed their questionnaires and has had them approved goes into payroll.